International media mentions France as a champion of greater security and defense role for the European Union. Proposed the text, diplomats said, but it was amended to accommodate concerns from military neutral countries and from staunch supporters of transatlantic cooperation, such as the Baltic states, who see European security as mainly a matter for NATO with a strong US role. So my question is, new fears and accuracy within the European Union, we see again. In which individual countries will this affect? Hungary again? Sorry, but it's always actual.
It's okay. If we agree on one major provision as Europe must be not a security consumer but provider, I'm in favor of giving the European Union more powers in this regard, asking the European Union to invest more into defense and to have kind of coordination of efforts, industries, research and development in the field of defense. But it will take time for the European Union to be defense sufficient. We're not defense and security sufficient for the time of being, and aggression of Russia is the best example of this. So that's why we shouldn't, try to increase any instability because of our political considerations, and that's why we have to stay in a closest possible cooperation with NATO. NATO and our transatlantic bond is, I would say, decisively important. And in coming years, between of us, I don't see any decrease of transatlantic relations for European security. So that's why now we have to combine and to use this transatlantic security concept as much as possible, asking the European partners to assume more responsibilities, because for the time of being, we have no enough investments, we have no enough of power, and we have no enough of production. So that's why it will take time. Things might change, hopefully for better. And Ukraine is a great example, as Ukraine's army for the time of being is one of the most powerful in Europe, and with such a fresh experience. Many of European armies have nothing, in a close horizon to compare with Ukraine. So that's why we have to learn from those very, heavy, I would say, examples, but not to try to imitate so-called stability, having no stability at all.
I want to stress again towards our government, and our president always repeats in his speeches towards the politicians of the world. For the period before NATO membership, Ukraine suggests implementing our proposals on the security guarantees. It's called Kyiv Security Compact. They cannot replace or substitute for Ukraine's membership in NATO, but will guarantee Ukraine's security until full membership in the alliance, which has no alternative. So again, my question, what guarantees we may receive before this long-term awaiting to join NATO?
This is a very important question, and I think it was a very good attempt, to create this Kyiv Compact, which was produced by good experts in defense and security field. What kind of security guarantees Ukraine needs and we can provide? Let's start from financial and economic guarantees of supporting financially, supporting economically, and by investments of the state of Ukraine. And Ukraine needs a lot of this kind of fiscal support, even in cash, for withstanding huge losses because of the Russian destructive war, as well as decrease in economic potential of Ukraine. So I see it a very part of our security guarantees, as long as it takes. On the other hand, it's not enough. So we have to mobilize our defense industries. We have to mobilize our even societies, I have to admit, to support militarily and in a humanitarian way as much as it needed. And finally, I think there should be some bilateral guarantees from some member states or a group of member states towards Ukraine as that support for Ukraine will be increasing. I don't see any possibility to apply so-called Article 5 by even bilateral guarantees, but coming up closer and closer to de facto membership, I think this kind of support, military support, is so essential. And we shouldn't restrict ourselves speaking about weaponry. Of course, we're not touching upon the issue of nuclear and so on. These are out of our considerations. But the rest, everything should be on a plate, and everything must be available for Ukraine if we are serious about security guarantees. And I'm not naive. I don't think the Ukrainian side, the President Zelensky, will agree on those so-called security guarantees if they are not really effective, if they are only based on words and good wishes.
If not Article 5, there's always Article 4, as I remember talking to the representatives of American Politicum. So they told me that this might be used and the Ukraine can take part in the discussions. But the precedent of this case should be something terrible. The disaster with Kakhovska Dam is not enough to use the Article 4. Maybe Zaporizhia power plants can be the... I don't want to talk about this, but what should be the events here in Ukraine to use the fourth article of NATO status?
I think we have to speak about this the sooner the better. We have to have Ukrainians around the table, and the Ukrainian opinion, the Ukrainian position is and must be increasingly decisive on the Western decisions. I don't see any alternative about this. Not just about praising the Ukrainian militaries, but the decisions which are taken by Ukraine and foreseen must be known. These decisions must be discussed, shared, and the Western response to great extent and increasingly must be based on Ukraine's assessment. I think to foresee a certain turn of events in Ukraine, only Ukrainians can do it in the best way. I think we don't have much of capacity to replace Ukrainian position. So that's why those consultations and new forums, by the way, for consultations must be really established. So that's why Vilnius Summit must be a gate opener in this regard. And we have to come with something more, not less in this regard.